34th session. So, and last week, uh, Keyuri from Manav Teerth had read the first part of chapter 15th, Natural Justice in Humans. And this chapter is a long one, so we've divided into three parts. And Right. So today, Mridu Didi uh, will be doing the reading, and all of us have known Mridu Didi, though the introduction seems rather terse in saying that she takes care of the school and the hostel. But we know that what does it mean? These two two small phrases actually uh, are what all it implies. So in the last few years, she actually moved from Delhi to Kiritpur, and from the reference of Delhi, it is she moved to out of nowhere and set up a new school from ground up, and and a number of things she has done over there. And if you look at the things that she has been able to accomplish with the help of all the people and the team, it is phenomenal, right? So over to you, Mridu Didi. We are all very impressed with all what you have been doing in terms of not just in the school, but what you have been doing as a person and a family person, that bringing up the children over there in that environment. So, welcome to you, and I'll share maybe you can share a few words about you before we start reading.
Uh, Namaste to everyone. I think, Bhaiya, the introduction you've given is more than sufficient. So basically, yes, I've been born and brought up in Delhi. And then after marriage, basically Ankit's home is in Hyderabad. But we were in Masuri. There's a sansthan there by the name of Siddh. So basically, we've been in different sansthans over the last 10 years, I think, or more. So in Masuri also it was an educational based institute, and then after marriage we went there. Then we did our adhyayan in Achoti, and after that we went back to Delhi to work on the happiness curriculum, and then we came to Manav Tirth in 2018. So it's been very nice. I think all the previous experiences helped us work here uh, to start the school and the hostel, and having a big team was very helpful, um, because there are people with all kinds of expertise here. So I really understood what it means to work on the ground level. I definitely had a very different perspective before I started working on the ground level. So I've learned a lot and matured a lot, and still have a long way to go. So I will try to share some of the examples today also. But of course, they are very incomplete, I would say, but maybe just a glimpse of what I have experienced working here and living here, and how I connected what I read, what I will be reading today. So, but please excuse me if the examples are very simplistic, but I somehow feel they are connected to what is being talked today. So I'll share that in my sharing today.
जी दीदी,
ठीक है दीदी
I'll
भैया.
share the screen. Uh,
हम्म, हम्म. Sorry, one second. हम्म, ठीक है. I'll start भैया.
जी जी
ठीक है. So in the previous section shared by Keyuri Ben, we noticed that Babaji has emphasized a lot on the essential role of the body in humans, and hence the need to be aware of its condition and consciously maintain its health. In essence, I feel Babaji is teaching us to think as humans and not only as bodies, as is the condition in the present time in the material world, and also not to think only as Jivan, as is the condition in idealism. And I could say, in a way, even with us as students of Madhyasth Darshan, because Jivan is so fascinating, Many a times we still operate at the level of thinking about Jivan more than thinking of ourselves as humans. And that sometimes interferes with our study and practice as well. So I think this chapter really helped me visit this thing of viewing myself as a human at all times, and that helping me in my study and practice. The other concept that was discussed in the previous section was sanskar. And in our process of study and practice, as we start understanding and accepting certain realities, it starts reflecting in our living. And this is essentially called sanskar. And this reflection in our living is our sankalp or resolve. And one thing that has constantly been striking me a lot, and sometimes I wonder why didn't it strike me earlier, is that humans are sanskar anushangi or sanskar conformance, and which basically helps me understand that everything has to be understood, taught, broken down into smaller parts. And I think working with children has really helped me understand that, because uh, you can't assume that they'll just understand. You have, or they will understand with time. You have to create a culture, you have to create situations, you have to dialogue, bring that kind of logic in front of them, to help them understand the finer details of living. And when I do this with them, I remember the time when I stayed with Babaji for 7 days, the one and only time I had the courage to stay alone. And that time, he pointed such minute details about my behavior, conduct, and everything, that I didn't realize how much that helped me progress as a person. And some people could think that why is someone discussing such minor details about etiquettes and um, uh, behavior? But uh, I notice now that what he shared at that time, and that thing that consciously changed inside of me, really helped me move forward, because there were certain blocks I had which were stopping me from working as a team player, or taking people along, or there's this sense of very intrinsic competition I think I had, which I never realized till he pointed it out in his own creative way. So that's when I now working with children here, I realized that sanskar anushangata is absolutely true. It's something I completely resonate and accept, and I realize why education is so important. And education is the process that facilitates this process of cultivating sanskar. And I feel today that this section of Manav Vyavhar Darshan focuses a lot on these two aspects called just behavior and dharm-based thoughts. And we'll discuss that as we go along. So I'll just move to the first anubhuti. The innateness of all humans is only restfulness. All human effort is solely for attaining restfulness. So here by design, or our inherent desire or nature is for being in a state of ease or rest. This is called Vishram, Jagriti, or awakening, realization. All these different words have been used for it in Darshan. So we do not enjoy being uneasy, restless, or uncomfortable. And this state of restlessness is not referring to a physical state of rest, where we rest our bodies after a long day of work or physical labor. It's not talking about that state of rest, nor is it that is more connected with the body, nor is it referring to an inactivity or negligence or a sense of laziness, where we avoid or escape doing something useful, which is in the direction of our awakening, or we are simply unaware of what needs to be done and how it has a role to play in our lives. So it's not talking about that kind of rest where we are lazing around. But Babaji is talking about a sense of alignment, alignment in our thoughts and action, a state of stability inside of us, in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our desires, that reflects in our day-to-day living. This stability or state of rest enables us to take decisions, make choices, interact, and do things at every moment of the day without feeling agitated, stressed, or without our emotions coming in the way. By emotions, I mean when we get overly emotional. Stability or restfulness is desirable, is practical, is achievable, is what I understand from the time spent with Babaji and reading Darshan, and now this experience I'm getting at Manav Tirth. So, this restfulness is an outcome of our study and practice. And study and practice together build our understanding and lead us to enlightenment. So just again, an example which might be very simplistic, but it helps me articulate this better. So like giving an exam, or you have to do some public speaking, or you have to do something you're just not good at till now. It often brings a stress in our lives, and we feel like escaping that situation somehow or the other, because we don't enjoy being in that state of stress or non-alignment. We constantly want to be in a state of ease. So one solution is, let's just avoid this situation somehow. And that is what Babaji is calling lazy. But that will hinder our progress or come in the way of our awakening. So what is the solution? So the study and practice that is rooted in knowledge is the only solution I can understand. It helps over time to build our self-confidence that expands our comfort zone. And it helps us make sincere efforts towards learning, doing new things, and not shying away from them. So, study and practice, in other words, is the effort we are putting towards our progress. And effort is most certainly involved in reaching the state of restfulness. And it's a joyous effort in living with honesty and sincerity with ourselves, living with a sense of affection and seva or service with our families, living with a sense of ownership and responsibility with society, and a sense of coexistence with nature. So after we reach a state of restfulness, we continue to do all the same things we're doing. So we will continue to live with sincerity and honesty, but it'll be in a state of rest. So it's the same act, but it's just become effortless now. So first it was an act of effort, and now it has become effortlessness, but there is continuous action. There isn't a state of no action or inactivity, or as the word in Darshan that is being used as akarmanatva, in the state of restfulness. In fact, in a state of restfulness, one becomes more efficient, more decisive, and always active. Is how I see it. Um, so the next anubhuti, the conceptual understanding of restfulness becomes possible only through just behavior, dharma-based thoughts, along with realization and truth. So I personally found this anubhuti the crux of the whole thing, that in order to make ourselves even capable of understanding reality, we need to practice living it today. And how do we practice it today? What is the benchmark for practice? From what Babaji is saying here, it's just behavior and dharma-based thoughts. So these are our two guiding points. And at every point, we examine our behavior and examine it in the light of justice, as is written in the Darshan. At every point, we examine our thoughts. What is its basis? Is it coming from an understanding of existential reality? Is it rooted in harmony for all, what I'm thinking right now? What will be its impact? Will it aid growth just for myself, or will it be a aid of growth for everyone? Or are my thoughts governed more by sensory pleasure, or governed by desires that cater only to mostly to my interests and gains? So there seems to be this need for this process of examination in the light of justice and dharma. And for myself, if I see how would I continuously try to practice this in my life, so I constantly remind myself of two practical approaches. One practical approach for just behavior is living in samajik niyam, or social laws. And in that, there are three aspects. One is swadhan, an understanding of what is mine and what is the others, and what is the rightful way of creating and maintaining wealth. So, what is my wealth? How do you define that, and how do you live that? That is something to consider and work on. And one is Swanari Swapurush, so living with the concept of one man, one woman relationship, or respecting that husband wife one lifelong commitment with one person. And third is daya pun karya vyavhar, or kindness in work and behavior. So from what I've noticed, or I feel that living by these social laws, or the attempt to practice living in these social laws, creates an ease in living in the society. And people are accepting of you, give you space to do things. They feel secure in your presence, don't feel threatened, or at the same time, they're able to give you respect. This is something I noticed when we came here and started living here, is that we were in a space which was not ours. It belonged to other people, culturally, socially, they were very different. And the first year when we opened the Sansthan, not a single female worker would come to this campus, because there was so much uncertainty about who we were and why were we here, and a sense of insecurity with our presence. And I think there was a very strong approach to maintain a certain culture, a certain etiquette while living here, and which was constantly talked about in all our goshtis, and from morning to evening, whatever we did. Why all these these three things: Swadhan, Swanari, Swapurush, Dayapun, Karyavyavahar, and that also primarily Swanari, Swapurush, because Swadhan was something that is one is still trying to figure out how to live in this current system. But definitely in the mindset, that approach was there, that there is this constant physical effort to create our own wealth and also share it with others. And with the people who worked here from the village, there was always this approach of integrating them and also feeling integrated with them. So that the initial years were very crucial. At that time, I didn't realize, but now I see with the way the villages have responded to us. Uh, and now that there is this complete ease with which the women of the village come and work here, and the ease with which they come to the school and they're part of that community as well. Um, and the kind of liberty now they are giving us in their own space. So it feels that definitely maintaining these three aspects goes a long way in uh, gives you this space to work. So this thing is something that I find is very important for our study and practice. And the other practical approach that I understand for dharma-based thoughts is living in Bauddhic Niyam, or the intellectual laws, in which Vidya and a learning of the material and the non-material, Saralta or simplicity, or I tend to use the word humility, where there is, always some good or quality par excellence in the other, that you're always ready to learn from. An abhay, or a sense of trust with all, understanding the existential design of the material order, plant order, animal order, and the human order. And understanding the existential design of all four helps us build trust on each of them, as we understand the right way to interact with them and be with them. So living with that sense of trust, or fearlessness, and then a sangre, or the non-accumulation or non-hoarding of physical things, living with a feeling of prosperity, being able to share it with others, and sneh, a feeling of affection, which essentially for me means to, from what I understand from the darshan, is participating in all dimensions of living without committing any crime, and inspiring others to do as well. So living with these inclinations help build our character and inspire people around us. Sorry, I'll just continue. So living with the social and intellectual laws, we live without committing crime, and most importantly, without giving space to crime. So often one feels that one who lives with affection, is very soft, and will give room to everyone to make their mistakes, and correct them with time. As I learned that in real life it plays out differently, or what is being said in the darshan is different. That as we as we try to live by these laws, and by we live without committing crime, or we try to live without committing crime, we play an active role in also ensuring that acts of crime are seriously addressed or punished, or whatever one would like to call it. Living with affection doesn't mean you will not punish. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because this was a realization for me. I was an extremely soft person, And after I opened the after we all opened the hostel here, I realized that how that gets misconstrued. So living with affection, now I understand, means that you would do everything it takes to bring that person on the path of progress. So now, when I shared, initially it was very hard for me to point out a mistake a child has done, or tell him in a slightly harsh tone, or tell her in a slightly harsh tone. But I noticed this shift in me, that suddenly, when I was convinced that the child's progress is my first priority, it became easy for me. In fact, affection equated with this desire for that person to live without committing crime, or to progress, or to develop one's character. So then taking harsh decisions also became easy, because I was convinced that that decision would help that person in the long run. So that was a realization for me, that affection has a very big expanse. It just doesn't mean being soft on a person, or putting your hand on that person's head and comforting them. It means a lot of harsh stances, where the other one may even get upset with you for some time, but that's required to bring them on the path of progress. Living without crime prepares us for enlightenment and realization. Practicing living without crime increases our patrata receptivity for the higher Jivan activities. In other words, our goal is to achieve Chit Shuddhi, or the purity of the Chit faculty of Jivan. That is, practicing living in just behavior and dharma-based thoughts prepares our Chit to be in alignment with Buddhi. So this whole anubhuti for me meant how to practice our living, obviously rooted in our study and in knowledge, that helps us purify our chit, our ichha, shakti, and to be able to receive the higher faculties of Jivan. So this is one thing that really struck a chord with me. Dharma and justice are in the refuge of truth. The larger or the subtler reality subsumes the lesser subtle or the tangible ones. When we say truth or the absolute reality or the subtlest reality, it automatically includes dharma and justice, and dharma automatically includes justice. Dharma-based thoughts would definitely include just behavior, but just behavior doesn't necessarily include dharma-based behavior, dharma-based thoughts. Thus, both have to be addressed. That means both have to be studied and practiced, and which would be an effortful exercise, an important one. Next, Anubhuti. All the work and behavior of a human entity, individual, family, society, nation, or the world, in the refuge of justice, lead to result, maturation, and consequence as the accession cause, which is the way resolution and coexistence are accomplished. So here, basically, it is said that in an environment of justice, or in other words, in a justful society, where there is knowledge in all individuals, justice will manifest at all levels, at the level of the individual, family, society, nation, and world. And every action and every consequence, whether short term or long term, will always be positive towards harmony, towards orderliness. And this is called ascension. It's a tough word for me, ascension cause. Next, Anubhuti. Eminence of humaneness and higher humaneness becomes apparent in the society where behavior is in the refuge of justice. When behavior is rooted in justice, then we see a society established in humaneness and higher humaneness. When everyone is living in mutual fulfillment of values such as trust, gratitude, and love, then there is humaneness in society. When everyone is living with complementarity, then systems run well. Family systems, health systems, education systems, production and exchange systems. They all run well like a good well-oiled machine, as we have learned to coexist with each other and not just exist. We are able to see each other's needs, where one needs to plug in for the other, where one doesn't need to plug in for the other, where one needs to give each other space, and where one needs to step in. This synchronization is possible because we're all living with a common goal of an unfragmented society and universal orderliness. And that goal subsumes all other goals. So, from what I understand, in the light of a larger goal, one is able to be more regulated and sanyamit. One is able to focus on the need of the hour and not get troubled by what the man wants. Like right now, often we struggle that we feel like doing something else, but something else is required of us at that point of time. But if we are in tune with the larger goal of the system we are living in, so if you're in a family, that family system, if we're in an educational institute, so the educational system, or the society that we're living in. So at that time, the goal of that specific space becomes our vision, and we feel at one with that. So then the issue we deal with every day on with our with our mind, sorry, with our man, and that that sort of unregulatedness, or sometimes moving away from Sayam comes into the picture, but the larger goal anchors us in maintaining that regulatedness or the Sayam. Um, and so here again, there's an example I wanted to share that often in school, a teacher would share that I want to teach this subject this year. And many a times we've had to respond to say that, but the school needs you to teach this subject or do this kind of a responsibility. Sometimes it may involve not teaching a subject at all. And it's been a very interesting exercise because what we realized was that a teacher who shares the larger vision of the school, there is absolutely no friction, or there's an easy acceptance for the need of the larger goal. However, where the person is disconnected with the vision or is unable to think beyond his man or his immediate need, gets stuck at that point and cannot understand how his or her growth is also connected with the larger goal. So this is one thing I wanted to share in the context of how one gets synchronized with the larger goal of justice and dharma, and is and in today's day, when we are trying to practice the darshan in our living, if we are able to anchor ourselves in that larger goal, it helps us deal with our daily issues of man wanting to do all kinds of things. And because the truth is that it's very hard um, to live a regulated and a Sanyamit life without having an anchor. And definitely, knowledge is the biggest anchor. And in today's day and age, when we're trying to practice it, what has really helped is that larger goal as an anchor um, to my regulatedness or desire for regulatedness. And I see it around here as well. Often with the children also, because for them, the hardest thing is to ignore their man. And often we have to say, Beta, the need of the Sansthan is this right now, or the need of your overall growth requires this. So you'll need to say bye bye to your man for some time or park it somewhere else for some time. Initially, it was very hard, but with the older students, it's become quite easy. In fact, they also keep saying things like, okay, we parked it aside for now. Next, Anubhuti. Conversely, opportunistic behavior leads to the suffering from delusion and ignorance, which gives rise to inhumaneness. So, one, we are talking about humane behavior with living in the refuge of justice, and the opposite of that is living with an opportunistic behavior, which leads to a suffering from delusion and ignorance. When we live with an opportunistic behavior, we are where we are able to think only about ourselves or our family or our community or samudaya, then we are unable to live in the complementarity that we mentioned above and end up living with the selfishness, with a sense of selfishness or a sense of competition or perhaps even a sense of superiority. working solely for our good, even if it's at the cost of the other. This leads to a rise in negative emotions among people, such as jealousy, hatred, malice. And these feelings bring about a sense of mistrust among the people we live with, among the society we live in, and so on. On recognizing Jivan as an entity, mistrust is replaced by a feeling of trust, hatred by affection, selfishness with Parmarth. This is because Jivan has the same potential and goal for all human beings, and that is of achieving realization. In other words, living with an opportunistic behavior is the outcome of not understanding Jivan and equating Jivan with the body, which is the state of delusion or ignorance. And recognizing and understanding Jivan gives us a point where all humans are equal in their potential and in their goal. Next, Nandamurti. The progress from lower value to higher value result, maturation, and consequence is referred to as accession cause, whereas the movement from higher value to lower value result, maturation, and consequence is referred to as decession cause. So here, from what I understand, that when we're talking about progress, moving forward, moving from the perspective of Priya Hit Labh, or what we call pleasant, health, and profit orientation, we are moving to a perspective of justice, dharma, and truth. And this is what is being referred to as progress or accession cause. And in moving away from opportunistic living to justful and humane living is the way forward. And that is making us move from the inhumaneness to humaneness and higher humaneness, which is called Manvita and Ati Manvita. And at the same time, there is another movement that could also happen, which is a form of regression or deterioration, which is being called decession cause, where we continue to live with the perspective of pleasant, unpleasant, healthy, unhealthy, profitable, unprofitable, and remain in inhumaneness and opportunistic living, and are not able to move forward or go beyond that. Next, Anubhuti. The sociality based on the perspective, intrinsic nature, and propensity of human behavior has been categorized as follows: humaneness, higher humaneness, and inhumaneness. So, over here, basically, we're talking about how do we understand a human being, what he stands for, how do we observe a societal system, what that system stands for, how do we identify these things. So I understand from three terms that our perspective, intrinsic nature, and propensity. These three terms have been used here for observing and understanding our behavior, and thus the system we end up creating. So I'm sure this has been addressed in the previous chapters quite a bit, so I'll just share briefly. Perspective means the way we view or weigh things. There are 6 ways to view or weigh things. The 6 bases on which we weigh things are pleasant, unpleasant, healthy, unhealthy, profitable, unprofitable, justice, injustice, dharma, dharma, truth, untruth. If we are able to view things in the light of justice, dharma, and truth, then human behavior is humane. If we view things only in a pleasant, healthy, profitable way, devoid of justice, dharma, and truth, then our behavior is inhumane. And if we view things only in the light of absolute truth, then our behavior is of higher humaneness. Intrinsic nature, the second term that has been used here, this means the basic nature of the person. And what is the basic nature, or what nature do we aspire for? So here it has been categorized into 3. Inhumane nature is of servileness, treacherousness, or cruelness. Humane nature is of fortitude, courage, and generosity. And higher humane nature is of kindness, grace, and compassion. So humane nature is of fortitude, courage, and generosity. Basically means that when we move away from opportunistic behavior and move towards the practice of just behavior and dharma-based thoughts. Um, we try to also emulate the humane nature, which is of fortitude, courage, and generosity, where fortitude refers to the ability to live in justice, and courage refers to the ability to inspire justice in the other. And generosity means where you're willing to invest in all your energy and all your tan man dhan for the other person's progress. And higher humane nature is of kindness, grace, and compassion, where kindness refers to being able to aid one's journey of progress or of jagrati without of awakening without causing any interference or the feeling of interference in his journey. And grace and compassion is to be able to provide um, uh, input that the person requires, uh, despite basically being able to bring that kind of receptivity in that person, or instill that kind of receptivity in that person through one's compassion. So from this, I understand that if we look at if we look at defining the inhumane, humane, and higher humane nature, it's very natural for us to want the other two, the humane and higher humane. So that is definitely our aspiration, something that appeals to us very naturally, even if we are living in inhumane nature. But when we think about it, it troubles us, it bothers us. And when we hear about the other natures, it's something we want, we aspire for, we get glimpses of it, it makes us happy. So despite our inner conflicts, we aspire for courage, we aspire for kindness. And it is important to keep that aspiration alive through study and practice. And when we observe ourselves carefully, we are not satisfied in less than that. We want to achieve the higher humane nature for our satisfaction. Propensity means inclinations, the things that we are more inclined towards. What are the key factors that guide us in our decision making, our choices, our actions? Is it our five senses, our four instincts, or the three righteous desires, or benevolence? So senses and instincts give predominance to the body instead of the jivan. And this leads to inhumaneness or opportunistic behavior, which is devoid of justice, or it is rooted in priyahidla. And the three righteous desires lead to humaneness, and benevolence leads to higher humaneness. And our directionality is for the last two, the latter two, the three righteous desires and benevolence. And we'll discuss that a little more in the next Anubhuti, so I'll move forward. Bhaiya, do I have to stop for questions? Or
You could go on. We could actually ask the audience, do we want to, in case you have any questions, you could raise your hand in the middle as well. If Mridu Didi, you are comfortable taking questions in the middle, or we can actually
take it
um,
again.
stop at 9:15 and then take questions. Uh,
Okay.
it's going on very beautifully. Yeah.
Okay. Both work whenever anyone has a question or in the end. Um, so I'll just read the next Anubhuti. The entity with perspective attributes intrinsic nature and propensity that nurtures humaneness is referred to as humane human. The entity with perspective attributes intrinsic nature and propensity that nurture higher humaneness are in two categories: deitic human and divine human. The entities with perspective attributes intrinsic nature and propensity that further inhumaneness are also in two categories: animalistic human and demonic human. The Anubhuti by itself is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure a topic that has come up many times. But briefly, there are five types of humans that are being talked about: animalistic, demonic, humane, deitic, and divine. And based on the three things mentioned in the previous Anubhuti about perspective, intrinsic nature, and propensity, these 5 types of humans get defined. The key point is that the existential design is to move from animalistic to divine human. This is what we all desire and the direction we like to move in. Now it is about how strong our desire is that enables us to move continuously in that direction, in that right direction. And here is where our struggle is. How do we choose the right direction at all points? How do we strengthen our desire to move in the right direction? How do we overcome this constant inclination towards our 5 senses and 4 instincts? It is definitely a Herculean task. But if we were to see Babaji's tapasya, then it is nothing compared to that. He has made it a lot easier for us and given us the method of study and practice. And, so we can definitely study the books, but how do we practice it? How do we make sure we're not practicing something wrong? And again, this is how I perceive it, and I'd be very open to others sharing otherwise also. For that, I feel Babaji has given a very simple method of Anusaran and Anukaran, which is to copy and emulate. So, copy and emulate what seems to be the next logical question. And for me, in this chapter, it comes out very clearly that it's about copying and emulating just behavior and dharma-based thoughts. Um, if you recall, when we have read about behavioral values, we come across 2 values of shraddha, reverence, and pujyata, devoutness. So when we revere someone or when we understand what is reverence, there is a sense of devotion or towards achieving it. And how devotion is defined is Agya Palan, Anusaran, Anukaran, and Jigyasa. I mean, obedience, copying, emulating, and a thirst for knowledge. Um, Obeying, copying, emulating excellence is devotion. So right now, devotion in the context of India, I can say, is mostly you have a picture of someone you revere, and then you take a thali and will do an aarti and do a tika, and that makes you feel closer to the person you revere, and you try to revisit all the good deeds you would like to do or you want to do. So that is one part. But here Babaji is discussing Pujata in a very different way. It's a very active process where you are copying and emulating um, things which would impact your desire, your thoughts in a very strong way. So even though we are in a process of understanding what is excellence, what is justice, what is dharma, what is truth, until we don't understand it in its entirety as it is, it won't come naturally to us. But till then, what do we do? So we emulate whatever Babaji has said about it, is how I see it. We bring it in our daily practice. Just as a just as an example, I don't know if this resonates with all of you, but just say the example of Swanari Swapurush, or the one man, one woman relationship, and committing it for life. This is something we can practice. Sometimes our thoughts may waver, so we resolve not to let them waver. We definitely not let our wavering thoughts convert into action. Gradually, with practice rooted in study and rooted in knowledge, these thoughts will become fewer and fewer and at some point disappear. That is our practice of just behavior will strengthen and become nearly continuous in nature. Obviously, I can't say it will be continuous in nature, but the um, the capacity of living with that thought would increase because you're consciously doing it. And at some point, in continued study and practice, it would become natural. This is how I perceive it, and I'd be very open to hearing more from everyone about this. Humane humans are awakened, higher humane humans are completely awakened, and inhumane humans are unawakened. It's also pretty straightforward. Complete knowledge is attained at the level of humane humans, However, at the level of evidence in living, there are three different stages that are talked about. One is humane humans, other is deitic humans, and the third is divine humans. Uh, This can be seen as a natural progression in one's living. If one were to visualize a awakened human tradition, then it seems pretty logical that in your late teens, early 20s, 30s, where this prime time when you're working, building a family, and working on many fronts to settle all those things, that at that time the three ashnas or the three righteous desires are predominant in your living, which is putreshna, vitteshna, lokeshna. So progeny, uh, desire, wealth desire, and reputation desire. These things are there in the foreground when you're in the humane level, with awakening, with realization, and trying to, and you're building various fronts at the level of family, at the level of work, and at a small level at society as well. And in the next stage, I mean, this is obviously my guesswork, but when you're in your late 40s and 50s, putreshna, progeny and wealth, righteous desire has been pretty much taken care of and settled, and there's a sense of satisfaction with that as well. And then there is this location or reputation desire that takes predominance. And the way I see it is the effort one takes to instilling knowledge in society, or the right thought and action in society. There is a very intrinsic desire that it gets communicated correctly and people are able to recognize that. And that is how I perceive reputation desire, that if I've communicated something, it has been taken in the right light and I am identified with that, in that right light. And so that seems like something, because after one is settled on the first two fronts, one eventually gets time at that age to contribute in a larger way in society. Hence, that role becomes pretty predominant, and hence the need for that reputation desire seems pretty logical to me. And then the third stage, at a later stage in life, which is the divine stage, when all the three righteous desires are satisfied and no such desire is left. So that is the higher humane human, or the in completely awakened state. The next anubhuti is humans engage in the process of moving to higher value or lower value only with differentiation of nurturing or exploitation, which become apparent in the form of development or decline. This is the crux of our journey right now, I feel. In our study and practice, whatever we are doing right now in our work and behavior, is it in the right direction of my growth, my family's growth, my society's growth? How do I ensure I choose the direction of growth? Here again, the two guiding points that have been mentioned about just behavior and dharma-based thoughts. This is in our hands, wherever we are. No one can force my thoughts to be a certain way. My thoughts are governed by me and my efforts, my conduct, my actions. Babaji has mentioned 122 conducts, which is sufficient material to keep thinking about and practicing. Um, I recall one point about husband and wife relationship, which really struck a chord with me. About he mentions in the book that you have to do a fresh evaluation of each other every single day of your life. And I realize that that's a relationship where you accumulate so much baggage, but the person just has to open the mouth and you've already attacked him or her, because there's so much you have thought of that what he will say and what it will lead to. So you preempt everything and you start speaking your story. But here Babaji clearly says, you do a fresh evaluation every day in that relationship. And I feel we need to obey that first. Like, I feel he's given a lot of things, which there is a lot of room for us to practice, and somewhere we are only falling short. And so I see this as a as a big thing for me to obey and practice. And I feel that has already helped me a lot to resolve a lot of things and helping me move forward. So this was one thought I wanted to share.
This was very nice, actually. I mean, for me, I was never clear about what did he mean by नित्य नैमित्तिक मूल्यांकन और मूल्यांकन करने में अभ्यस्त हो गए हैं.
Mm.
So when you said that fresh evaluation every day, then it makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that. Mm.
So the next Anubhuti. The attempt to surpass through aggression does not succeed of lower value over higher value, narrowness over pervasiveness, few over many, entity over entirety, weak over mighty, incapable over capable, or unworthy over worthy. Accordingly, opportunism fails to surpass judiciousness, nor shall it ever succeed. So, in essence, higher value will always succeed. Valuing the lower over the higher value will lead to unhappiness and mistakes. Valuing the higher will always help us move forward and make less mistakes. This is something I get to experience quite a lot here, um, and it's very nice to see that the culture that has come about here over the last few years, and of course we need to work very hard on it still, but whatever we have established so far, what I notice is that the children who've been with us for a longish time have begun to value or give value to that, and the ones who are being able to see the higher value in this place are able to live here very easily and comfortably, and the ones who just for the life of them can't understand why their parents have sent them here. They just cannot understand what this place has to offer, are struggling. So and struggling and making mistakes and highly indisciplined and all those other things. So and I realized the children who find it toughest to live here are the ones who not their man is very havi ko kya, predominant on them. It plays very heavy on them. They're not able to set it aside, and perhaps they've not ever experienced that before, where someone has asked them to put it aside and give value to a more important thing first. So I think inculcating this habit in all of us is really important, of being able to identify uh, what is the thing that needs to be given higher value and how to aspire for it. Um, I see it a lot when I get stuck somewhere on what to do. I need to remind myself that I need to pick the thing that has the higher value, even though it is a tough decision. But I know I can feel convinced that it'll take me forward. And I see that getting transferred to the children here with living with in the presence of all the people who are trying to inculcate the same in themselves. The next Anubhuti, the followership and agreeability of one by many or of many by one succeeds only by behavior rooted in justice, otherwise, it fails. So, again, copying and emulating the right behavior helps us move forward. Copying and emulating the wrong behavior gets us into trouble. It is very crucial to be able to identify right from wrong, to be able to do the right evaluation. um, I think the one of the main focuses for us also is to be able to do that over here as well in the school and the hostel and in the campus, is to be able to evaluate right from wrong. And for this, what has helped is that there has been more emphasis on setting up a culture, and the culture subtly communicating it to everyone rather than the constant talk, ki, yes, do this, do that. That also happens, but less and more gets communicated through the culture, because teenagers don't respond very well to too much talk, and they love logic, but not for themselves. It can be applied on others. So subtle seems easier. Copying actions than simply words seems safer. And couple of things that I noticed here, we run a program called the Higher Learning Program, where we invite speakers who are very established in their professions to come and share their life journey, because their life journey is very humbling for the children, and they realize that everything comes with effort and discipline. So when these people share their life journey with them very openly, because it's a very non-threatening space for such established people as well, the children have gained a lot from it. But the interesting part is that uh, when one or two, actually only one, when one of the speakers shared their journey, the predominant children later shared that the speaker was very different from all the speakers we've called so far. Um, he seemed very halka in his talk, like not serious, not gambhir. Um, he didn't seem to connect one thought of his with the other, and seemed that the our school motto is inspiration to live with fulfillment, and the children said it seemed to us that he took it very lightly what fulfillment means. He took it very materialistically. So about 7, 8 odd kids at different points of time came and shared with different teachers and with me. And it was very heartening for us that the children could make that evaluation, because it's important. We do bring in speakers from everywhere, but it's important for them to take the right stuff from there and be able to put aside the things that are not worth copying and emulating. And our response to them was that, see, everyone has all kinds of traits in them. You have to gain from what right they have done, and put aside things which they may have done wrong or are not being able to do very well. But it was very heartening to see that they could do that kind of evaluation and assessment. But also it was an alert from us that we need them to not start evaluating themselves higher than these people who have worked so hard. So them not getting high-headed or thinking their evaluation is very perfect and the other one has nothing good in them. So the concept of being able to respect that person, seeing the good in that person, and keeping the other part separate from that seems like an important task that still needs to be done with the children, because otherwise it could lead to a sense of conceit. I think that would be the right word in English. So that was one thing. The next Anubhuti. The procedure of just behavior and followership by individual of family, by family of society, by society of nation, and by nation of the world is successful only according to the above principle. The realization of heavenliness through followership procedure takes place only in the awakened human tradition. The deviation from this system is hellishness. This is so because a higher value cannot be attained within a lower value. So each step lays the foundation for the next step. A resolved individual leads to a resolved family, leads to a resolved extended family, society, and so on. In such kind of an awakened human tradition, the practice of copying and following makes it natural for children to make the right choices, value what's higher, as everyone is moving in the right direction or the same direction. Right now, that is not the case. What we are talking and what everyone is seeing outside sometimes seems completely in the opposite direction. So right now we have to do it more consciously, this process of copying and emulating, and hopefully for the future generations, it will become a more natural exercise. The policy and process of adherence to laws of humaneness is referred to as agreeable conduct, while its opposite is referred to as a disagreeable conduct. So, again, this is pretty self-explanatory that social and intellectual laws come under agreeable conduct, and living outside of the laws comes under disagreeable conduct. Next point. Law itself is justice. Justice itself is knowledge. Knowledge itself is science and wisdom. Wisdom and science itself is resolution. Resolution itself is eternal happiness and completeness. Truth itself is regulation. Regulation itself is law. So living in social laws is justice. This is possible through knowledge, and knowledge leads to living with science and wisdom. Wisdom in taking decisions in different scenarios, and there is no standardization there. Wisdom is required to evaluate a particular situation, a particular scenario, and accordingly respond. And science is what while you're executing things, the kind of things you need to take care of and plan for. Uh, this approach is solution oriented, not problem centric. So when you're rooted in knowledge and you execute in the form of science and rooted in wisdom, there is approach is very solution oriented, and not that we are constantly surrounded by problems and how will we ever move forward and where are we stuck. Instead, there's a very positive approach to moving forward and always seeing the positive outcome of whatever has happened and how it can build on the further progress of a human being. Resolution is a state of restfulness or eternal happiness. And resolution here meaning just what I just said, that the solution oriented approach, which is a state of restfulness for sure and a sense of eternal happiness. And truth is regulation, and regulation is law, itself is law. So when we live a regulated life, we are living according to the laws, whether it's a social law, intellectual law, or natural law. And the beauty of this is you could reverse it as well, that niyam se jeene se hi niyantran hai, that if we live by the laws, which are the social and the intellectual and the natural laws, we are automatically regulated human beings, which is why today I felt the need to talk about that study and the practice of just behavior and dharma-based thoughts, because trying to live by these laws will help us regulate our living. Otherwise, it's a very challenging task. The second last anubhuti. Physical appearance, might, and intelligence are individual possessions. Their success is only through their righteous utilization by adhering to societal, and intellectual laws. These laws can be summarized as follows. The balance in behavior. The balance in behavior with respect to physical appearance is through righteous character. Might is through kindness. Intelligence is through wisdom and science. This itself is the law and justice. So physical appearance could mean your body language, your clothing, um, your overall sabhyata. Sabhyata, what would be the word? Civilization? I missed checking this English word, but your overall physical appearance would include all of that. How are you sitting? How are you speaking? What is your tone? What is your pitch? What are the kind of clothes you're wearing? What are your hand movements like? What is your facial expression like? And so physical appearance, so what is the logical conclusion of that is righteous character, and then righteous character then includes living with the right etiquettes or the right shishtachar, which influences a similar culture around. So here physical appearance to me means more about the kind of body language you communicate with and how that influences everything else around you. Might, so not to exploit with the might you have, but you appear kind or live with kindness. You help the other one in their journey of progress. And with intelligence, you're not looking at conceit, but you're looking at um, wisdom, and looking at how you can uh, progress, how you can address the situation with wisdom and science. And this, in essence, is justice. And as the last thing says, living, this itself is the law and justice. So, in essence, living with law is justice, living with law is regulation, um, is what I gained from the previous two anubhutis. And the last anubhuti for today sums up pretty much what we discussed today. The above behavior becomes successful only when it takes refuge in justice. Otherwise, it becomes opportunism, which is the cause of tribulation. So, in today's day and age, if we are to see the cause of our pida or sadness or the struggle, is somewhere the opportunistic behavior, which is not being able to be rooted in justice, but is rooted in pleasant, unpleasant, healthy, unhealthy, profitable, unprofitable perspective. And that perspective is taking us away from justice. But practicing just behavior and dharma-based thoughts, or practicing social and intellectual laws, helps us move away from this opportunistic behavior to a more humane behavior, and gives us an aspiration to, or a benchmark to work towards, humaneness and higher humaneness. So I would like to close with that for today.
Excellent, Didi. बहुत ही सुंदर. This was this was very well done. I mean, what it really spoke to me was that it was not just scholarly uh, exercise, which was just trying to explain from word to meaning, but it was the your experience in the last few years of practicing of doing Vyavhar Abhyas in the school was actually giving the gravity to the whole thing. The stability with which you were speaking the concept were really wonderful. So I'll now open the floor for any questions for you, Sheila Didi.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly, Rakesh bhaiya. जितना व्यवहार अभ्यास एंड इन्होंने किया है, it's all it's coming out in your expression, Mridu, because yeah, definitely it's been a long journey of learning. So I found myself nodding a lot and giving thumbs up here, even though my camera was off. But I was nodding all the time, right in the beginning, also, and with all your examples. So yeah, I brought it alive, and especially your experience with Sanskaranusangi Manushya, Bacche,
Mhm.
Balak, and yeah, it took me some time also to for that to sink in,
Mm.
right? So I could sync with that. I mean, the other sync, SYNK. See.
Mm.
So, yeah, great. It was lovely listening to you. Lovely.
Thank you.
Renu
Actually,
Didi? Yeah, Raghava, you want to say something?
yeah, one question I had. See, I mean, I'm just reading out the question that I wrote. See, what is Priya Hit Labh is somewhat clear to me. Looks like it's very basic. But even being truthful is somewhat clear. But what actions of mine are according to Nyaya or Dharma is not at all clear. I mean, I always feel that whatever I do is always Nyaya and Dharma somewhat. Right? So, how to differentiate is not very clear. Is there any guidance on how to determine what actions of mine are Nyaya or according to Dharma? Or is it just an instinct that we need to develop somehow? Or is there any guidance or any rules that I can follow?
So, in the darshan, the way justice is defined is there are these behavioral values which are talked about. There are 18 of them, and experiencing that in a relationship, and also evaluating the way the role you have assumed. So if you assume the role of a mother, and you're so are you living with the value of care? So mamta is care or care, and so one is understanding how the darshan defines mamta or care. That is the first step, because right now we have a lot of pre-existing notions about care. So first, understanding what the darshan is saying about mamta, and then when we see that as a role that we are playing in the other one's life, and the other one is playing the role of a child in our lives, and that's a mutually fulfilling relationship. And at the point at which both are satisfied and mutually fulfilling that relationship, that is called justice. So first is experiencing the value of care, and then second is evaluating that my relationship with the other person, the way I'm viewing it, he or she is also viewing it in the same light. It's not that I'm thinking I'm the mother and he's thinking or she's thinking she is my mother. We have that mutually fulfilling relationship, and hence we are both mutually happy. So this Ubhay Tripti is a word used for justice. So in every situation, one evaluates whether we are fulfilling the value that is required in that relationship, whether we are fulfilling the role that is required in that relationship, and the role in the context of actual progress of Jagrati or awakening in that context. So there are these 18 values are very precisely defined in the darshan for
Sure.
justice.
Yeah, I'm just a beginner, so maybe I will have to go through those things, I would guess. Sure, thank you.
And Priya Hit Labh is basically looking into your interests. You're doing something because you're interested in it, or you're doing something because you're not interested in it. But that interest, is it in the light of justice or not? That is an additional factor that needs to come in when you're viewing everything in the light of justice. And same with health, that you're looking whether something is healthy or unhealthy. In that context, you're viewing it. But is it rooted in justice? Is it rooted in truth? Is it rooted in dharma? So, guided by the higher values, the interests and the health or the profitability.
Thank you.
Ji, very nice. Renu Didi, you want to say something?
Yes, I firstly want to congratulate. It was really beautiful to be able to see it woven into life. That's what finally is the purpose of darshan. And you kind of made it alive by bringing incidents from your life, especially the ones which is that husband-wife relationship, the example that you gave. And, I had to go through a real hit low in our relationship to be able to come to that point of evaluation every day is the crux of it. Can I see all my relationships every day afresh in the light of what is being said in darshan, in the light of there is a core blueprint impetus, and there is a behavior, and there is a factor of inability or incapacity that lies, and you don't start doubting the intention of the person. So that was a kind of huge validation when you also said it. But it also put me in a place of, it would be lovely if you could share in many of the examples that you also gave, there is a part of pausing and stepping away from where you are, bringing in what is being proposed in darshan, then making a choice and acting. That's a whole lot of process. Is there something that you did specifically to be at that space, or just understanding darshan kept opening those doors for you? Is there something specific that helped you? Because I found myself struggling. I still struggle to be in that space because the reaction is quick. The old habits are stronger.
Yeah, I think, Didi, for me, the crux was bhagidari, putting myself in a place of participation where there's no way out. I mean, you participate in something, and with people who are working towards the same goal. So when you're getting their sanidhya, and there's this constant input that is helping you move forward. Plus, you're participating in something which is for a larger good, so you end up learning a lot of things, and get a huge canvas for Vyavhar Abhyas and Karma Abhyas. So I think that really helped. And this also happened, because when Babaji was there, and I got to spend a lot of time with him till 2011, and then suddenly when Anya happened, I could not, and then 2016 he passed away. So that played a huge, it was very heavy on my mind that I could not spend the kind of time I wanted to, and I was absolutely determined that after that I want to be in this kind of an environment more than anything else, because otherwise I personally found it very difficult to keep a stable head on my shoulders, or to be consistent. Now I feel confident, more confident than before at least, that when I step out or I go to another kind of a space, my environment is with me. Initially, it was not like that. Initially, every time I used to go back, I used to struggle. Now I feel, whatever state of a little bit of comfort that I've experienced inside, I feel I'm able to carry it with me, and I feel comfortable wherever I am, and I don't get into the critique mode.
Thank you. It was really nice. Lots of points to um, digest and mull over. So thanks. Thanks for bringing this part alive,
Thank you.
making it practical.
So is there anyone else who would like to say something or
Yeah,
ask? Yes, Spencer.
yeah. Namaste, Mridu didi again. No, I just wanted to say it was just really wonderful listening to you share. And when I first came to India, you really welcomed me into your home and showed me around and your life in Delhi at that time. And I even went to your parents' place. And so it was just you and Ankit always have very made my experience very warm and smooth my first time. And but I have never heard you like share so much like this, like the darshan reading and sharing, because a lot is in Hindi. And so but as soon as you started sharing today, I felt like, oh my goodness, I have to really pay attention. I don't want to miss anything, because it's just oozing with practical information and knowledge from your experience. And it's very obvious that it's mapped out very clearly in your mind, all the how everything is interconnected with the laws and behavior and everything. So your delivery is of course very smooth, because it's very clear, it seems. So I'm saying, like, I'm very impressed, but I should not be so amazed, because it's you, of course, and you've done so much and spent so much time with the darshan, and so I just really liked it so much. Yeah, so thanks for sharing.
Thank you. We also remember you very fondly. And we keep awaiting your visit.
Definitely.
Yes, Spencer, your words are so kind. I mean, it kind of shows what you had experienced earlier and what you want to say. Shilpa Didi, you want to say something?
Yeah, Mridu Didi. So, like, I think enough has been said, but yeah, nevertheless, like, your life is such an inspiration. You're living it, like your bhagidari and everything, karma abhyas, and everything is very, very inspiring. And it was a very nice presentation. So, yeah, much thanks to you. I just had a small question. Like, I think it was a third anubhuti, like dharma and justice based this thing. So you said that justice necessarily may not have dharma based thoughts, I think. Did you say that? So I just wanted to just make it more, if you could just explain it further.
In the sense that the Anubhuti was talking about how the subtler reality includes the more tangible one. So when you're talking about truth, it by default includes dharma and justice in it. So in our Anubhav Gami Vidhi, in our process of understanding, when we are working towards justice and dharma and satya, There could be times where we are, being able to see greater glimpses of justice, but the dharma part is still incomplete. It's not entered the picture the way it should. We're not being able to see at a larger systemic level, and um, which is a gap at that point. At the same time, by itself, it's a big achievement if one is able to look into just behavior. But the reason for mentioning that was that the journey is incomplete. I mean, sometimes you can be extremely happy that you've achieved justice and you're having really good relationships and everybody's happy with you and you're happy with everyone. But that is not the complete picture. There's a larger system you have to be in tune with. And so dharma-based thought also requires effort. And the journey is only complete with both of them, and of course with truth adding to it. So one doesn't just get satisfied with justice. I think that's why I wanted to emphasize that just behavior may not include dharma base. So it's important to make an effort for both, not just one.
Yeah, got it. Very nice. Like, really helped. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
But Didi, one supplementary question. So justice is seeing in every relationship whether we are satisfying and on both sides and both of them are happy. I understand. But is it not the case that if we are just won't the system itself become dharmic? I mean, is it not if all people itself are happy? Won't the system itself, the whole direction of the whole larger system won't become happy? I mean, so why is there a difference between dharma and this dharma and the other one? Yeah. Yeah.
One will definitely contribute to the other, but both require attention, because dharma, when you're looking at systems of education, health, and production, exchange, there are a lot of things you have to think about. And definitely, if you are rooted in good relationships, the system will end up being a good one. But you have to create that system and establish it and make it work. And wherever there are flaws, you need to fix it. So, going in the systemic order, you need to put in some additional effort. And of course, dharma is a much larger concept. I think Rakesh, if you could add to that part, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think you said it very well. While Nyaya or justice actually focuses on relationships, Dharma focuses on Vyavastha or the systems. So the systems have to be so which is a larger which has a larger scope. So Nyaya is the starting point, then comes Dharma, and then comes the absolute state of truth. So truth is not what is opposite of lie. Truth is basically uh, understanding the things at the level of being, right? So, so we see that there is a progression from justice to dharma to satya, nyaya, dharma, and satya, right? Which is actually is a set. Uh, just as Priyahit Labh is one set. So Priyahit Labh is the set for animal consciousness, and Nyaya Dharma Satya is the set for developed consciousness, which is for Manviyata, Dev Manviyata, and Divya Manviyata. So while these three cannot be are these three are inseparable, but clearly there are actually gradation from Nyaya to Dharma and Satya. Okay, so I think we had a wonderful session, Didi, and totally impressed, and would uh, look forward to the next one by Ankit Bhaiya, and hopefully you join as well. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was a very tough one. Speaking all this in English was a huge struggle. But
No,
I
actually,
enjoyed it.
I think you made it alive, and I mean, Babaji had said that you do it once, and then the people will make it alive, and he's And now I understand what he actually meant it. What he meant by that is that we need to make the content available in the other language. And the people like yourself who have actually put in the effort for bringing it into the practice, you can actually then after that present it in your own words and using this content information that is there as the basis for explanation, and that has its own gravity, right? So I think it is important to have the darshan available in other languages so that those people who actually think in that language have more access to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So great job,
Thank
Didi.
you so much, bhaiya. Thank you everyone for listening and appreciating, giving me motivation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And good night and have a nice day, everyone.
Good night and have a
Good
nice
night.
night too.
Good night.
Namaste.
Namaste, Rishta.